My name is David Cohen. I'm 61 years old and I live in Stamford Hill in North London, UK. I'm a vegan. I'm a vegan and have been a vegan for nearly 20 years now. But being a vegan, it doesn't really tell you what I eat. It tells you what I might not eat, but it doesn't really tell you what I do eat. So I don't eat meat, fish, dairy, but what I do eat is salads, raw vegetables, raw fruits, nuts and seeds, and steamed vegetables, including potatoes and fermented tofu. I became a vegetarian around my late teens, early 20s. Looking back, I think I was influenced by the people around me who were vegetarians. Some friends that I'd got to know fairly recently were vegetarians. And I stayed as a vegetarian until the late 90s. So I was 40, just in my early 40s then. And again, I was influenced partly by my wife and became a vegan. So we stopped drinking cow's milk and stopped eating eggs. So I stayed as a vegan for a couple of years, and then we had a visit from my wife's aunt who was into raw food or raw vegan food. And again, I thought about this and I read up a little bit about it and it made sense to me. So my wife and I decided to try the raw vegan diet. Although my wife didn't continue with it, I continued with it, and I was 100% raw vegan for about 10 years. I grew up in a North Manchester Jewish household and I was brought up on typical Jewish foods, including meat and fish and dairy. I didn't really think about healthy eating at all until I got married. So for the time that I was vegetarian before I got married, I would consider myself to be what's called an unhealthy vegetarian.
God, he used to eat and eat and eat. He never stopped. His mouth was always moving. He used to come back home from work and I would be cooking dinner and he'd have these enormous cheese and salad sandwiches and I'd say to him, why are you eating so much now when I'm making you dinner? You're actually having your dinner before your dinner. And portion control was something that he just did not get or understand.
He ate, I think, the wrong things. We used to have dinner and then used to have, after dinner he had to have biscuits and kichels and ice cream and anything else that, you know, was around. And
going back to his earlier days when he used to eat, yes, he could eat for Britain. He could eat a lot of food and I think he used to eat pretty well everything at one stage, but he was always fussy about certain types of food. I remember he would never eat cheese when he was young. And I think he didn't like tomatoes. But generally, he ate quite a lot of food.
When Dave and I first met, we were both, we weren't overweight, but we weren't as big as we were a couple of years after meeting and then getting married. What Dave used to love to do was eat out, so we ate out quite a lot.
He used to like Indian meals and we used to eat. He was very well padded.
And also when we were at home, he used to love to go up to the local bakers and he wouldn't just buy one cake, he'd buy sort of 3 or 4 cakes. And also he encouraged me to eat as well. So I put, you know, while we were courting, as it were, I put on weight and I put on even more weight when we got married. And we had pizzas, really high-calorie vegetarian food. I think the first year we were together at the Christmas, he ate so much that he had chest pains and had to go and see the doctor, who told him that his troubles were to do with eating too much because he really didn't know when to stop eating. There's a very good photograph of him as a child in the garden dribbling with food in both hands. And his mother would always say that David would be eating mixtures, whatever that meant in the 1950s, and it would make him ill. And I think really what it was that he just didn't know when to stop eating and ate till he was sick.
What it means to me to be vegan, to me there is a lot around animal husbandry, and there's a lot around looking after the planet. But I think for me initially it was all around my health, because one of the things that I was very keen on was, look, though I was quite a lot older than my son, I wanted to make sure I was fit and healthy to be able to join in the things that he was doing.
So I remember when he really turned his diet around, that was after the birth of our son. I can't really remember how old he was, but he'd been to the GP and was officially declared overweight, and I'd always been going on at him about eating too much and portion control, and that, you know, if he wanted to be fit and healthy for his son, because he was over 40 when Murray was born, I think he was 42, so basically when Murray was going to be really active, then he would be in his late 40s, he needed to be fit.
And veganism in particular, I hadn't eaten meat since I was late teens, so I'd already given up meat and fish.
And then he seems to have developed from there. He was vegetarian when he got married, and then some years later he went on to the raw food diet, and he went very strict on that.
But I wanted to give up having dairy products as well, because I didn't think having dairy was an optimal part of my diet. So to me, veganism is a healthy diet. One of the things that I do watch out for is to make sure I get the right vitamin and minerals, and veganism actually doesn't include all of the essential vitamins. So one of the main ones that you can't get, or it's difficult to get, is B12. So I do take a B12 supplement. I also take a vitamin D supplement, which I think most people in the population may be low on anyway. It's not just a vegan thing. So for 6 months of the year during the winter, when we don't get enough sun, I take a vitamin D supplement, and I also take a liquid iron supplement from time to time as well. So that was really the start of the awareness of what health, diet and nutrition was. But really it began in earnest when I started to get into the raw food diet around 1999-2000, when I started reading a lot more about health, about the types of foods that were optimal in terms of carbohydrate, in terms of fat, and proteins and vitamins.
He still eats a lot. He still has huge bowls of salad, but the difference is that he's eating low-calorie food, so he's okay to, keep the portions large because it's not high calorie.
So I am a person with autism, and I was diagnosed in 2011 with having Asperger's, which is high-functioning autism. So this has had an effect on my life, as you might imagine. In terms of my diet, I think it's made it easier in the sense that with the raw food diet, for example, there's certain things you eat, there's certain things you don't eat. So being Asperger's, it was quite clear to me, the things that I did eat, the things that I didn't eat. So I just got on with it really and started making food. In terms of my relationship socially and with my family, yeah, it has been challenging. I tend to look after myself because that's the way my brain works. So for instance, with my family, we haven't always eaten together, which is one of those things that people cite as important in terms of a positive in family relationships. But generally, if I'm going out in a social crowd with other people, I'm in the minority, so I have to fit in with everyone else. So it can be a bit challenging. Occasionally I might eat rice, for example. I might have a baked potato. I might have a vegetable hot pot or something like that. But again, it's all a bit of a compromise. It's something I'd rather not do. But I know if I'm just going to have the occasional meal like that, it's okay. It's not going to do me any harm, really. So
it seems to have gone through different cycles with his vegetarian food in his older days. He's relaxed a little bit, to me it seems now, because at one time you could hardly even go out with him. He wouldn't have a drink, wouldn't eat anything. At least now it's a bit easier. He will eat some regular type food like a jacket potato with salad and various other things, which makes it quite easy to go to either a Mediterranean style restaurant or deli type restaurant. Is usually something that you can eat.
So socially, things have eased up a bit. But he's doing very well, and had he continued on the path that he was on, I'm sure he'd have lots of digestive problems now because of his age.
So let's talk about fasting, actually, which is quite a controversial subject. So I have done some short weekend fasts and sort of 1 or 2 day fasts, and I think fasting, this is water fasting, so you're just having water, not food. And I think fasting is very beneficial to the system. A lot of people can go on fast, and I think it would help them. Contrary to popular belief, you don't actually get hungry. You get past the point of being hungry, and you don't necessarily want to eat after a few days. You just want to drink water. Being Jewish, there's a number of festivals which are based around food. One of them is Passover, or as we call it, Pesach. And one of the things that I do make at Passover is red grape juice, because I've got a juicer, so I make my own grape juice, and also I make my own charoset, which is a special dip that we have made of walnuts, raisins, and cinnamon. And that's a sort of vegan version of it, if you like, with apples as well. Mustn't forget the apples. So in terms of the raw vegan diet, I went to a lot of seminars, I read a lot of books, I took out magazine subscriptions, I joined an organisation called Get Fresh. So I had a lot of inputs that was coming my way in terms of telling me, you know, what the raw vegan diet was, what to eat, what not to eat, recipes. I've got some really fantastic recipe books. So this all helped me understand what I should be doing. Some of my favourite foods include avocados, green leaves. I've really made friends, as it were, with green leaves or green leafy vegetables. Quinoa, which I cook in a pot. Cashew, which is roasted buckwheat. Steamed vegetables. Some of the steamed vegetables that I really like includes broccoli, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, red potatoes, tempeh, which is fermented tofu, a whole range of different vegetables. In terms of fruits, apples, bananas, red grapes I really like as well. Raspberries, I try and have some raspberries every day at lunchtime. And fruit bars, especially naked fruit bars. So living in a household with meat and fish eaters, in the past it's been a bit challenging, so there's been aromas and flavours that have been around the house, like the smell of cooked fish, which is I find a little bit difficult, chicken and foods like that, but you do get used to it. You make your own food, you prepare it in the way that you want. There's other foods in the house, in the fridge for example, but I think you just have to compromise and get on with the way that you have to live. So it's not been too bad. I've just got used to it over the years, and I find it okay now. I tend to buy my foods, I buy some foods at supermarkets, but not that many. My favourite supermarket is Waitrose, mainly because they have a very large organic range, and I do try and buy as much organic food as possible. The other foods that I buy, I tend to buy from local health food shops. Some of them are independent, some of them are chain health food shops. But the place I really like to go to are the London farmers markets. Today we're going to go to one I haven't actually been to before, which is in Pimlico, which is not far from Victoria. There's a stall there called Phil's Pesto, and I really like his pestos.
106 to Finsbury Park Station.
I believe organic food's better for you, it's better for the environment in terms of animal husbandry, etc. And I've really enjoyed eating organic food. I think it tastes better, and I eat as much organic food as possible, and I think it's contributed to my overall health pattern. Here we are at Pimlico Farmers Market. Never been before, so let's see what it's like. They have a whole range of fresh food, a lot of it organic, and you can talk to the stall holders and get to know them, and it's a really fantastic place to be. So I tend to go to maybe 2 or 3 in a weekend, not just one, and really enjoy my little trips to farmers markets. And I do consider my overall level of health to be pretty good. When I was fully into my raw food diet around about the middle of the 2000s, I did lose a fair bit of weight, about 3 stone, and I was looking a little bit thin, but I consider that to be quite normal actually. So since starting to eat some cooked foods, I have put a bit of weight on, but not a huge amount.
David is now having steamed vegetables, which he really enjoys. So it does it does really pay off to look after your diet.
I don't really have any illnesses. I get the occasional cold, and I feel as if I'm in pretty good shape, really.
When Suzanne, David and Murray come to stay with me in Manchester, it's great. It's very good because we both work together in the kitchen. David chopping up the vegetables and I'm making food for whoever else wants different things. And it's quite good, we work together quite well. I help in the kitchen as well, but it's amazing how he's got the art of presentation, which is incredible because everything looks so appetising. And it's good, and we don't get in each other's way because however we're doing it, we seem to sort of walk away or go round each other, and it just does it, and it's great.
Where do I like to eat in London? A few of the places are Raw Religion, which is a sort of raw food bar just off Tottenham Court Road near Goode Street Station. They do things like juices and things like that. Planet Organic, which is again just off Tottenham Court Road near Gower Street. I sometimes go in there after work if I'm, say, going on to an evening social, and I'll buy a few bits from there. They even have raw sandwiches, which are quite nice. And the other place I like to go is the Wild Food Cafe, which is in Neal's Yard in Covent Garden, where I can eat almost everything on the menu, which is quite unusual for me. There's another restaurant called Tibbetts, which is off Regent Street, which is vegetarian really, and it's a sort of smorgasbord stroke buffet. So there's quite a few things that I can eat there. Although there's a bit of compromise I have to do if I want to have a decent sort of meal.
Do you miss any meat or processed products, and if so, what are they?
I don't miss any meat products or any processed products whatsoever. I've just got used to having the foods that I eat, and I don't miss anything at all, no.
Do you believe everyone should be vegan?
No, I don't believe everyone should follow the same diet necessarily. People are free to follow the diets that they wish to follow. However, from an environmental point of view, I think veganism might be an optimal choice because it gives up land to have vegetables and crops grown. Instead of being used for animals, it can be used to feed people who have a less than ideal diet or a less than nutritious diet.
So if you could open a restaurant, what would it be and what would they serve?
If I could open a restaurant, I think it would serve steamed veg, and I would call it the Steamer. So it would be exclusively steamed veg. There might be a bit of lemon juice as a sort of garnish with maybe some chopped herbs. But I think it would give people the opportunity to have and eat food as it truly is, without any other garnishes and sauces and toppings and things like that, which mask the true taste of food. So steamed veg would be my number one choice, because there aren't that many restaurants that just do steamed veg.